Hello and welcome back. My name is Deepa from DeeZinesByD, and today I have another Scrappy Tales post for you. Today I'm sharing a Slimline shadow box card, and to do this I used some dies from the previous release by Scrappy Tales, and I'll go over this in the video, but it really didn't take too long to make, and it's perfect for highlighting these beautiful flowers and the beautiful vases that come with the current Tropical Bliss release. So let's get into it. This is the Anthurium die set. So this is beautiful. It basically cuts out the main flower and leaves, and then you've also got other dies to kind of build upon it. Then you've got the A7 flower vase, and this is the die that I'm talking about from the past release. This is the Flower Shop Slimline storefront, and what you need is this die right here. It's got those 5 little sections to create a square column. So let's get started with the Anthurium. So I didn't even separate these dies at all. I basically stuck it on my white cardstock and just ran it through my die cutting machine. This was the easiest thing for me to do because I'm actually going to be adding ink to my cardstock, so I didn't have to cut it out in different colors. So all I'm doing here is basically taking off all of the little pieces. So you can see these little Anthurium flowers fit right on top perfectly. The 3 flowers that are included in that main die or die cut piece. And I'm picking out all of the little veins and everything else around there because I'm going to be adding ink and I don't want to kind of contaminate them with the wrong color. I've added some washi tape on the back that just kind of holds the die cut in place as I'm adding ink to it. And I've sped up this process here because it did take a bit of time to get the colors right and the blending right, but I'm adding some blush. This is Altenew blush ink to the actual Anthurium flowers. Now you can see I also inlaid the 3 separate flowers which are to be layered on top. And I've added the blush ink to that, and then I'm also adding the pink pearl ink to that as well. The pink pearl is darker, so this is just going to create a little bit of depth to that flower. Now I've removed those pieces to now add the green to the leafy and stem portions. I started off with some Altenew Sweet Leaf ink to kind of just cover the main area of the stems and leaves. I didn't cover it entirely, and then I went in with some Just Green Altenew ink, and then finally I'm going to add some Hunter Green ink in the areas where I think there'd be a bit more shadow. Now I don't want to add too much of that hunter green because I'm going to be using that for the veins of the leaves, and I want that to be nice and dark to have contrast against the rest of the leaf. So you can see it's a hot mess, but once you take it out of the negative piece, it looks absolutely stunning, and all of that variation of color can really be seen. Now keep in mind this is still drying, so it still looks a little bit splotchy. So now I've stuck those Anthurium leaves back in, and I'm adding just a tiny bit of that sweet leaf to the bottom edge. I'm trying to match the image on my phone, and you can see that has a beautiful peachy, corally type color. And then it just has a little bit of the green from the stem that kind of bleeds into the bottom of the flower, which is the effect that I'm trying to achieve here. Now once that's done, and I've also added that deep hunter green ink to all of the veins, I'm sticking in the little centers, or those little sticks, which are like the little centers of the flowers. And I'm just using some butternut ink from Altenew to just make those yellows. I'm not doing anything special, just simple yellow. Once I've got all my ink on all of my pieces, now I have to assemble it. So I'm adding the Anthurium flowers right on top of the corresponding flowers on the main large die cut, and I'm adding it with some foam squares, and I did this to add just a little bit of dimension, and just it allows it to sort of pop up on that larger die cut piece and stand out a little bit. Now once I've got those on there, I'm gonna add the yellow little stems, or the centers of the flower. I wish I'd kind of looked up what those are called, but that's what I'm adding now. I'm just going to add a little bit of Barely Arts glue, and then I'll use my jewel picker to kind of just stick those in place because they are a little finicky to kind of just get in the right spot. I would recommend actually doing this before you prop it up with the foam pieces. That would make it just a little bit easier for you. And you can see that looks great already. Now all I need to do is add in all of those little veins, and because they are more intricate, I'm not even going to try to prop those up with foam. It would have been nice to do that. I think maybe if you wanted it to have more dimension, you could cut out a few more of these from maybe some dark green cardstock and then just build it up at the back to give it a bit more dimension if you wanted to. But I'm just going to attach them straight to the cardstock here. They have enough kind of dimension as they are, and I don't want them to stand out more than the actual Anthurium flowers anyways. You can see that it's pretty simple to figure out where these veins go. They all look pretty different, and I think there's 6 of them, so that wasn't too hard to do. Once that's done, I put it aside, and I have this this stitch scallop slimline frame. This is from Pink Fresh Studio. It's not Scrappy Tails, but it just worked perfectly with this set that I had to use it and kind of highlight that beautiful Anthurium flower. Now you can see it cuts out 2 separate frames. So I'm adding some clear tape to the back just to attach the 2 pieces together and make sure they're not coming apart. Now for the frame, what I wanted to do is kind of have it match those Anthurium flowers. So I'm using a lot of that pink pearl, and I'm using my small blending brush to do this. Now I use the small blending brush on the Anthurium die cut piece because it had like a lot of corners and edges where I had to get the colors just right. Here you didn't really need to do this. I don't know. I got too lazy to grab my big blending brush. But then I also went back in with some more blush just to kind of cover that entire die cut and make sure there's no white showing. Now once that was done, I did the same technique. So I grabbed some sweet leaf ink, and I would recommend using the small brush here, and I created just a little bit of a green haze coming off the edge, just like I did on the edge of the Anthurium. And this is just really mimicking that flower. And if you end up looking at the final product, it's a lot of green. I've got a dark green background. I've got green leaves. The vase kind of will pop up because it is white and gold. However, it's just a lot of green. So I had to break that up and kind of tie it into my color scheme, and that's why I did the frame like this. So that's what it ends up looking like in the end. And you can see it totally matches the flower. Now, so I'm going to go ahead and grab my vase. I'm only using portions of this because I'm not going to make the pop-up. So I've got the outside frame for the larger part of the vase and the smaller part of the vase, which I cut out of Sizzix Opulent Ivory Glitter cardstock. And then I have that beautiful framework or that lattice that adds just a bit of detail to the vase, and I cut that out of some Sizzix Opulent Gold Mirror cardstock. So I've shown this in my videos before, but I want to show you again because I love this stuff. This is called Artist Tack Dry Adhesive. It's permanent dry adhesive. So what it does is it turns your intricate die cuts into stickers. And it has like basically release paper and a sticky side. You stick your die cut onto the sticky side. You kind of put some pressure there so that it picks up the sticky bits, and then you basically stick it onto what you want like a sticker. And you can move it around, pick it up, place it down again. And to kind of just make sure that it's placed in place permanently, you just have to burnish it with a bone folder or your scoring tool like I'm doing on the back. And that just kind of holds it in place permanently. And I love this because there's 25 of those sheets in a pack. It's lasted me over a year, and I still have like 20 sheets left. So it's a great product to have on hand, especially if you're like me and forget to stick it on the back of your of your cardstock before you die cut. Okay, so let's assemble this. Now I've used that column piece from the Slimline Flower Shop storefront. I've cut that out 4 times out of dark green cardstock, and I've also got my base, which is about 3¼ inches by 9 inches long. I wanted it long because I wanted to get that entire vase on the background there. So you'll notice that the columns, I'm going to put them together right now. I'm basically just folding along all of those score lines, which you get put into your die cut when you cut it with that beautiful die. And now I'm just assembling it by folding 2 long rectangles on top of 2 long rectangles. You have 1 long rectangle sticking out. You add some adhesive on there and fold it over. Press it flat very well so that it's stuck on there. And then when you open it up, you end up getting a square column. So I'm going to do that to all 4 of them, just to get them all assembled, and then we'll put them together to make the shadow box card. Now when you do make the shadow box card, what you're going to end up realizing is that those columns are not as long as your back panel, that 3 3/4 by 9-inch panel. So before I put this all together, I decided to cut out a second stitch scallop frame and kind of reinforce that ink blended frame that we already made, because it is it's gonna carry some of the structure of that card, especially at the top and bottom, and especially because those columns are not the exact length of this card. So what I've got to do is take 2 of these columns and attach them together. And it's important when you're attaching these that you feel around those long rectangles to make sure that it's flush. So each column is flush against each other, because if you don't, it's not going to sit properly on your card, and it's not going to fold properly or sit flat properly or go in your envelope properly. So this is a very important step, just to make sure you feel and make sure that they're nice and flush together to create like a longer rectangle column. So we'll do that for both sides. So there's 2 of these. So there's 4 columns in total, with 2 pieces glued together back to back and flush. So that's how they're going to end up going. And I'm going to show you here, this is how it will end up folding. So it will fold in like that and out, in and out. And that's how it's going to end up going on your card. Now I'm adding some adhesive to one side here. And this is going to have to, again, be nice and flush with the edge of your Slimline panel here. So I'm going to stick that on, and I just eyeballed it to center it. I'm pretty good at centering by looking. If you're not good at that, I would recommend just kind of measuring and making sure that the overhang on either side of that is the same. If you are that finicky, I know some people don't worry about it, and you don't even really notice it anyways, because the frame is going to cover it. So I've stuck both of those columns on, and you can see how that's how it's going to end up folding. So fold it nice and flat like this. This is another tip I have. Make sure that you folded it down flat like this and attach your frame like that. It's okay if your frame is not directly right on top of the column on the left and right side and there's like a little bit of an overhang. As long as it's equal on either side, it's going to look perfect. It's also going to look perfect because you've used the same color on those columns as you have on the background. So you won't really see any overhanging bits. It won't look weird. Now I did this with it not folded flat. So when I put it in my envelope, it's going to have a little bit of a pull on the top and bottom part of that frame. So make sure you do this while it's flat. So that's my biggest tip here. That's going to allow it to fold flat nicely and fit in your envelope nicely. Now, once I've got the frame on nice and good, I went ahead and I added that Anthurium flower in the center. I've made sure to add it so that you can see it through the frame if you look right directly on top of it. And then so that the stems are going to go into that vase so that it fits nicely on there. Now you can see here, I'm adding my vase. I've put some foam squares on there to kind of prop it up a little bit. And you can see the way that the bottom part of the flowers are, the stems, they kind of don't look like they're going in the vase. So I'm kind of adjusting it here. I'm trying to push that stem inward so it looks like it goes into the vase and looks a little bit more natural. Now all I have to do is add that little extra piece that goes on top of the vase to give it its final look. And again, I used another foam square so that it was flush with the bottom part of the vase. And that's how it ends up looking. And you can test it out now to see that it's going to fold flat. So now I'm going to work on my sentiment. I'm using the Tropical Bird stamp set, which is also another gorgeous part of this release. I have to say it's one of my favorites. It's got so many beautiful images, and if I had one thing I could buy from this release, it would be that. I'm going to do some mass stamping. So what I did was I used some washi to cover up the scripty part of the sentiment, and I added ink, some VersaFine Clear Nocturne ink to the printed portion. Now it's important before you stamp down to take that washi tape off, or you're going to get all that extra ink on your panel. Now I'm taping off, I've cleaned off my stamp, I'm taping off the printed portion, and I'm adding some saltwater taffy to the scripty portion, take off my washi, and I'll stamp that out, and that stamps out the scripty portion in a different color so that it looks like this was stamped with maybe 2 different stamps. And I'm just adding a little bit more of the saltwater taffy. It is a dye ink, so it did not look completely right. I needed to double stamp it here to make sure that it stamped out nicely. And then I'm just going to use the coordinating dies, which are available with that stamp set, to cut out the sentiment. I love the coordinating dies because it cuts out all the sentiments, which I absolutely love. Now all I have left to do is to add the sentiment. I'm kind of deciding where I want it here, at the top of the vase, maybe a little bit further down, and I think I decided to have it a little bit further down on the vase. And you can see that that lattice kind of helps you put it on there nice and straight. And that's how that ends up looking. Now to embellish, I'm using these strip gems, is what I like to call them. They're just from the dollar store. I'm in Canada here, so I'm sure you probably have something like this at the Dollar Tree if you're in the US. And literally that sheet is just half of what was on the entire long piece there. And it cost about, I think, $2 or $1.50 or something like that. It's really worth buying. And especially for things like this, I'm using it along the center of that frame just to add a little bit of interest. It looked a little unfinished to me. This gives it a bit more of a completed look. And it's much easier to do. All you have to do is kind of lay the strips down and then cut them off at the edges. And then you can use the extra pieces to continue to lay them down. The only tip I have is to kind of make sure to space out the next strip just a little bit because they have a bit of a space in between. And, you know, it's perfect because it is truly cost effective. I wouldn't be sitting here using my tiny little nail art gems to kind of stick down here either. And they probably wouldn't be straight. So I'm sure if you can find something like this in your dollar store, it would really come in handy. And I've had these for about 5 years, so they last a long time. So I'm going to continue laying these around the frame, and once I'm done, it just looks like it's so much more finished and complete, and it just gives it just a little bit of bling, which is exactly what I like. And of course, I can't stop there. I have to do a little bit more. So I've got these embellishments from Trinity Stamps. This is the Bubble Blower embellishment mix, and these are really nice because it has like a bubbly look. It kind of looks like a water droplet, but it has an AB finish to it, so an iridescent finish, so it picks up all of the colors of your project. So I'm just gonna stick some of those in the background, a few on top of the flowers and leaves to kind of look like little droplets, and it gives it just a nice effect. Now, once I'm done with that, I can't just stop there. I have one more thing I want to do, and that's to add some diamond stickles. So I've used this on my past projects, and they really just highlight the card and give it just that little bit of extra oomph. I realize this card is a little bit more plain compared to some of the cards that I do, so I find that all these extra little bits and embellishments just really make the card pop a little more. So all I did was add it to the centers of the flowers, to the little yellow centers, and then also like in the little parts of the leaves where there's actually indents or die cuts. And then also on the veins of the leaves. And this is how the final card ends up looking. You can see it looks absolutely stunning. I kept the background pretty simple because I really wanted those flowers and that beautiful vase to just stand out. This card, you can see, folds nice and flat. It would be flatter had I put the frame on when it was completely flat, but you'll see it'll still fit into a normal letter sized envelope. And I would say this card's perfect for maybe Mother's Day, a feminine birthday card, or any type of card like that. It could also work with maybe more somber colors for a get well card or something like that. So that's all I have for you today, guys. If you like my video, please don't forget to give me a like and subscribe to my channel to see more. And everything that I've used in this video is linked in my blog, which is in the description below, including all of the Scrappy Tales products. I hope that you've been inspired, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye.